"Welcome to Hayfield," Eddie said, as the group approached the fenced community. The fence didn't look like it could withstand an attack from walkers, but it looks deceiving. "Hayfield?" Wyatt asked. "Yeah, that's what the boss calls it," Eddie said. "So who is this boss, if you don't mind me asking?" Luke asked. "His name's Jonah," Ryan said, "and he'll decide if you're staying." He grumbled as he walked up to the front gate. "What's his problem?" Russell asked. "Ryan's the enforcer of our little community," Eddie said. "Try not to take it personally. The dude's been through a lot, especially when he's in second command." Clementine looked over to Ryan and at the guards at the door. "Fucking Eddie. He should have found a bunch of strays." The guard noticed and talked to his radio. "Hey, sir, the team came back with some people. They escaped from Carver's." "Yes, sir. But, sir, are you sure? We don't want to outstretch ourselves too thin." "Okay, I understand. Yes, sir." He lowered down the radio and nodded to Ryan. "Jonah wants to see them." Ryan sighed and shook his head. He turned to the group of newcomers as the gate opened. "All right, listen up," Ryan shouted to get everyone's attention. "Jonah is willing to see you, but if you do anything stupid, I will kill you and every damn person in this group, including that little rugrat and the kids." He pointed to Genevieve and to Clementine and Gil. "Do I make myself clear?" The group already did was nod. "Good. Do not waste Jonah's time. You are here to answer his question. And no beating around the bush," Ryan said. He went to the community with the fellow group of people behind him. Clementine felt nervous, and Ryan didn't seem to be very friendly. He almost reminded her of Troy. But unlike Troy, he seemed to respect this man, Jonah, where Troy had nothing but disrespect against everybody. He looked around and noticed that there were some houses still standing within the community. A couple appeared to which to be too damaged for any use. She also noticed how the people were looking at the group and whispering to each other in their defense. She and everyone else in the group didn't look too good. After all, they were covered in walker entrails. In comparison, the people within the community appeared to be wearing clean clothes. They seemed rather relaxed. As they made their way through the community, they walked up to a large building. She could see the middle-aged man standing outstretched building with two armed guards next to him. Ryan approached the group behind him and immediately got out of the way. Luke was face to face with the man. The man smiled with a soft-toned voice and he said, "Welcome to Hayfield." He had his arms outstretched to gesture to the small community. "It's nice to meet you all. My name's Jonah." He had a medium build, wore a brown leather jacket and a black plaid shirt, and a pair of blue jeans, a pair of brown boots, and he was balding with some hair that had been tied into the ponytail at the back. "Hi, my name's Luke," Luke said. "It's good to meet some new people. How about we all come inside and get out of the cold?" Jonah said. He turned and entered the large building. Luke and his group followed behind him. Jonah's armed guards didn't leave their sides. Once inside, Clementine looked around. It appeared to be a large building was once a factory. However, it appeared now as a survivor's shelter. Almost the machines were shut down, and the other machines were in use. Some people were running the machines. "Here we go. This office should be nice and quiet," Jonah said as he approached the small office. "Greg and Jack, you boys stay out there," he said, talking to his armed guards. "Yes, sir," one of the men said, while the other nodded. He made the gesture for Luke to come inside with him. Luke nodded and entered the room with Jonah following behind him. The door closed, and it seemed that Jonah was about to have an interview with one by one. Clementine considered it to be a smart move. If their stories didn't line up, then he could take a swift action to ensure that they wouldn't cause any harm. However, she was a little worried about Gil. He hadn't been in the group for very long, and he had no idea what happened at Howe's for the most part. The only thing he could tell Jonah was how Carver had captured him and tortured him. And Sarah was not in good state of mind. She was traumatized by losing her dad and boyfriend. Clementine looked back to the door. She almost felt anxious, and she wasn't sure why. This man looked nothing like Carver. She wouldn't have to worry about that to happen. They were finally in a safe community. Zeke sat straight up in bed. He huffed as he got into bed. "Good, here," Jane said as she tossed him some new clothes. "I found some clothes that would fit you. Get them on and then we need to go, Jane said. He noticed that she was wearing a different set of clothes. The skinny jeans that she wore were replaced with a darker pair and wore a red jacket. Thanks, Zeke said. Hurry, Jane said. Zeke removed his old clothes and put his new clothes on. He wore a pair of jeans that were darker blue compared to his old jeans, a gray shirt, and a brown hooded sweatshirt to go on top of it. That will do, come on, Jane said. We need to get out of here. Okay, can you tell me what's going on? Zeke asked. Listen, Jane said. Zeke exactly did that. He didn't hear anything at first and only shrugged, but then he heard it. Why are we doing this, man? A man's voice was heard. We gotta go be through, another voice was heard. People, Jane whispered. She shook her head. What do we do? Zeke asked. Can we take them out? I'd rather not try. There's 3 of them, but they're armed, Jane said, looking around for every way to escape. Okay, Zeke said. He looked around for anything he could use to escape the trailer without being seen by the scavengers. He looked to see that there was daylight outside, much to his surprise. It seemed like very late in the day. He ducked down before any scavengers could see them. Upon finding nothing use, he went back to Jane. Is there any way out besides the front door? Zeke asked. The window, Jane said. That wasn't much better. He did notice that the trailer was so close to the gate. Zeke couldn't look around the room for anything else until he noticed that there was a skylight. What if we go up on the roof through the skylight? That could work, Jane said. But that's risky. If they see us, we're toast. You got a point, Zeke said. Do we have anything to fight with? Just my knife, Jane said. There wasn't much here. Okay, Zeke said. He pondered whether to attack the 3 men outside or escape through the roof. It wasn't going to be an easy decision. He shook his head and he said, We'll go through the skylight and we should be able to jump onto the other side of the fence, right? Yeah, I can agree that plan as long as we make it out alive, Jane said. Alright, so we need to find something that will get us to the skylight, Zeke said. What about the shelf in the other room? Jane said. It looked like it was the right height. Awesome, we'll use that, Zeke said. It seemed like things were going to work out for the 2 after all, but Zeke was surprised when he heard the doorknob twist. He looked over and heard someone say, What the hell? I think this thing is stuck or locked. If it's locked, that means someone's in here, a man's voice was heard. Shit, grab the shelf, Jane whispered. She went over to the shelf, and as Zeke got to the shelf as well, they started to move it down. They heard the doorknob twist before someone made a move and heard loud bangs on the door. They were trying to bust it down. We know someone's in here. Let us in now or we're going to kill you, a man snapped. Zeke can only hear the doorknob starting to break. They ignored the man's shouts and managed to haul the shelf into the room. Jane slammed the door shut just in time for the door to break. Zeke caught a glimpse of the 3 men. He knew they were running out of time. Jane locked the door and Zeke pushed the shelf underneath the skylight. Come on, Jane said. She got off the dresser and lifted Zeke to the roof trailer home. Zeke turned back to offer his hand to help Jane. She accepted his hand and proceeded to jump out of the trailer. Jump! Jane exclaimed. Once she was on the roof of the trailer, she looked back before leaping and running over the fence. Zeke also walked back a bit before running and jumping, leaping over the fence. He almost didn't make the jump, but he made to the other side of the fence at the jump. He then followed Jane through the woods, as he could hear gunfire coming from the trailer park. It was probably those men. He knew that they wouldn't be able to make the jump since he barely made himself, and he was lighter than them. Plus, they would have to deal with the walkers before they could catch up to Zeke and Jane. After running for a while, the 2 stopped to catch their breaths. Well, thanks again for helping me back at Howe's, Zeke said. Is that the first time you saved my life? Jane nodded and she said, You put yourself in danger too much. Not like I could help it, Zeke said. Now I need to figure out where the group went. He looked around as something could use to track down the group. He knew that it would be almost impossible. He probably would have to go back to Howe's first and track them down from there. Why? Jane asked. Zeke stopped and looked at Jane. He was surprised when he heard her ask that question. What do you mean, why? Zeke asked. Why would you risk your life again to find those people? Zeke asked. They're all going to die, especially when you're not very willing to sacrifice yourself for them. Hold on, these are good people, Zeke said. They may not always think things through and they're a bit too trusting, but I think that's helped me. They lack survival instincts. That's something you and I have. Jane said, as she walked through the forest, with Zeke following behind her. I know they're good people, but good people don't survive that long. If you ask me, they're living on a borrowed time. Regardless, whatever that is true, I'm not giving up on them. I'm going to find them, Zeke said. Jane stopped and looked at him. I don't understand. What did they ever do for you to make you feel so loyal to them? Why are you risking your life for them? Jane asked. What else is there something for me to do? I tried surviving on my own and it didn't really work out for me, Zeke said. I was miserable every day and it was until I found people who would talk to me and help me felt upright again. Plus I'm dating that girl in the glasses. Love is a commodity that you can't afford now, Jane said. She's only going to slow you down. She's not strong enough. She can't accept this new world. Zeke couldn't help but agree that Sarah couldn't accept the new world, and Sarah had gotten stronger. She was still too morally idealistic. She then trusted people too much, and there was a pause before Jane sighed. It hasn't worked out for me either. That's why I'm asking if you want to stay with me. Really? Zeke asked. He wasn't so sure about joining Jane, but he figured he owed her for saving his life 3 times. Yeah, so what do you say? Zeke pondered on the thoughts of the action was. He knew that he owed Jane, but he didn't want to abandon the group he cared for. All right, Zeke said. I'll stick with you. He wondered if there was to be more to Jane. Maybe she was like him. Maybe she was grieving over someone who she cared about and needed help figuring out what to do and who to talk to. A small smile formed on her face and said, I didn't think you would say yes. Zeke nodded and said, So what do we do now? We find some supplies and wait for the herd and house to move on. I didn't like that place much, but it does have everything we need, Jane said as they proceeded to walk through the forest. Sounds like a plan, Zeke said. Zeke looked at the young woman beforehand. Have you ever thought about leading your own group? I think you would be really good at that. Jane shook her head and said, I was in a lot of groups before I decided it was better to be alone. None of them worked out. If the walkers or psychos didn't get them, they would usually kill themselves. That's understandable, Zeke mumbled. How about you? Jane asked. Zeke thought about telling Jane about his past. It didn't hurt as much to talk about Decker, but he wasn't so sure if he was ready to talk about him again. Zeke huffed and said, When this world ended, it was me and my little brother, and my abusive dad. At some point that monster I call my dad attacked Decker, my little brother. I had no choice. He was going to kill him, so I aimed my bow at him and released the arrow. I killed him. After that, Decker and I were on our own. We did well until this scum of the earth held us at gunpoint. I couldn't tell that he had lost his mind a long time ago. He kept asking who wanted to die first. I tried to get over to Decker to shield him. If there was going to be one of us who wouldn't make it, it was going to be Decker. But in the end, it didn't matter. He shot Decker. I tried to save him, but it was a fatal wound. That psycho shot him and laughed. That there was pretty much, he laughed. That psycho laughed and who shot and said that he would spare me for putting in the show. Then all he left, and all I could do was comfort Decker in his last moments before cradling him in his arms. Zeke tried his best to fight back the tears. I put him down when he turned and buried him. I went after that psycho and I killed him. I put him through hell until I finally started torturing him, and then I killed him. He looked up to see Jane with a shocked look on her face. Holy fucking shit, Jane muttered. Yeah, I know after my few weeks I found Krista and Omid. They always helped me in more ways than one, Zeke said. I know how you feel. I lost my sister Jamie, but nothing like that, Jane said. Jamie just gave up. You're not saying, Zeke said. It's not like that. I dragged my sister across 4 states. Every morning she would say she wasn't getting up, so I convinced her, push her. Hell, I even carry her if I had to. Until this one time, Jane said. Walker dust cornered us and forced us to the roof, and that was when they kept coming. I couldn't make her jump. I couldn't throw her, so I tried something else. I told her that she could have what she wanted, and I left her there. Damn, Zeke muttered. I feel so sorry you had to do that. Jane nodded. It killed me for a long time, but I finally realized that I had put on her much more forced march through hell, and if she really wanted me to do was to let her go, Jane said. You and I are the same. We're older siblings who lost the one we cared about the most. Zeke nodded his head and pondered through his words. She was right. They were at the same time. He remembered how Carver was always saying that he and Clementine were the same, when in reality they couldn't be many more different. However, Zeke couldn't help but see the similar he was to Jane. As they walked through the forest, Zeke wondered what it would be like if Decker and Jamie had made it. Although Zeke would have never met Jamie, he figured that their relationship with Jane, like his relationship with Decker, they weren't siblings, they were just best friends.